it's pretty easy when it comes to older women because their protein intake is so low. So the average woman in America weighs 170 pounds and eats 71 grams of protein a day. And that's
Wow.
the average prototypical American woman. That is pretty freaking low. Like that's definitely enough protein to be alive and survive, but you're certainly you're not like building a ton of muscle. You're not just really full on lower calories. You're basically, just kind of barely in there. And then if you look at elderly people, like the average American over 75 in this country, men and women, eat about 66 grams of protein a day, and it's quite a bit lower in women than it is men. So your grandma's eating like 60 grams of protein a day, maybe 50, which is enough to be alive, but maybe not enough to really spare as much lean mass as possible, muscle and bone. And that's one of the reasons why we see epidemic rates of sarcopenia and osteopenia in elderly people, because protein percentage is a major factor when it comes to sarcopenia and osteopenia. And so because her protein intake so low, if you look at the foods that we're providing to elderly people or that they're eating, it's just shockingly low in protein. I mean, it's like, we in the medical field, we talk about the tea and toast diet that this elderly, the mythical woman is going to be on, where they just have extremely low electrolytes and potassium and all these like horrible nutritional deficiencies from just eating tea and toast is the medical term, but it's like basically just extremely protein dilute foods. And so I think all your average, if your grandmother ate like a tub of cottage cheese, low fat cottage cheese, she wouldn't be hungry for the rest of her life. That would be like a week supply of protein right there. And she would find it very easy to automatically eat fewer calories. Like we have studies in these types of populations, and if they replace one meal of whatever, grain-based bread type garbage they're eating, one meal replaced with a whey shake, they just automatically eat 300 fewer calories a day. And since everybody is insulin resistant at that age in this country, that's going to be a huge upgrade to health. You're automatically going to get more protein, eat fewer calories. That's going to improve your body composition. That's going to improve, muscle, bone. I mean, you definitely want to pair it with exercise. Just protein by itself is fairly limited, but you combine that with some good exercise, and you're just going to really make progress. But so I think in that case, it's basically just intentionally dumping in a convenient, easy, high protein food, maybe when you don't have to cook. And that could be cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, whey powder, or something like that. I mean, you don't even have to cook these things.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I just presented you 3 totally different scenarios, different people, different goals, different life stages, different genders, all kinds of different stuff. And the message is so clear and concise and very consistent throughout each one of those. We need to prioritize protein. We need to make sure we're basically eating that first. We need to make sure that we're taking our energy sources from mostly whole foods, things that maybe don't have labels and are screaming at us that they're super healthy. And if we can just do that, pretty much we can be healthy and happy for the rest of our lives. Is that, I mean, is something I'm missing that seems really simple and doable?
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's the 50% of it that's diet, and the other full 50% is exercise. Like it's like, I used to go back and forth with myself, which one's like 60-40, 80-20. No. Diet and exercise, 50-50, boom. I don't care what anyone else says. That's the reality. And you'll never get all the way to your goal unless you're doing both, for sure. And I think that, but yeah, I think you're right that these diet principles are going to get you, 90% to your diet goal, which is half of your goal.
That's perfect. And when we go back to being simple and non-pragmatic, when we're talking about exercise, we know that you take such a great minimalist approach, which, especially since the pandemic, I think is fantastic. Before the pandemic, if you'd have said you could achieve really good physical results without having a gym, without having tons of weights and all these machines, I would have said, nah, you probably can't. It's going to be really tough. And now it's like, dude, I've been training people on the banister of their stairs or like in parks on trees. Like you can do all kinds of stuff with a very minimal amount of equipment. So can you tell us a little bit about your fitness strategy, how you're able to keep that minimal and what things you really prioritize?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think there's basically three types of exercise that everyone should be doing: some sort of cardio to improve VO2 max and cardiac output, and what your body can handle from a cardiorespiratory point of view. Resistance, which is basically muscular strength and size and endurance and power, and then general movement, which is like walking and step counts and things like that. So you kind of want to do all three. The walking and general movement is kind of this middle ground that everybody should just be trying to do, right? You should try to get your at least 8,000 steps in a day, maybe 10,000. Go for walks, wear your Apple Watch, track your steps. Like try to move around a lot. Anytime you can, you take the stairs or park as far away as possible, or you try to just work movement into your day. So ideally, you don't even really have to necessarily make yourself do the general movement part. That should just be baked into everyday human life. Just make sure you're moving around a lot. But then on the other two sides, with cardio and resistance, what ends up happening is you can always trade intensity for time. So in other words, I can do 1 minute of all out hard as I can go sprinting, and it might be just as beneficial from an adaptation point of view as 10 minutes of just like moderate cardio. You know what I mean? Same with resistance. Like I could spend an hour in the gym doing a dozen push-ups here and a dozen weights there, and using like lighter weights and kind of just throwing them around, or I could just do one set of push-ups as hard as I freaking can, like all the way to failure and beyond, and then hold it as long as I can, and just try to absolutely crush myself and tell my muscles, you're not strong enough, we're going to die unless you get more muscle. And you can get the same adaptations in a lot shorter time span if you're cranking the intensity way up and demanding an adaptation from your body. You're basically telling your body it has to be better than it is right now. You can do that with cardio or resistance by just really pushing out of your comfort zone and really redlining things and really maximizing the intensity of effort. And I think it's that intensity of effort that allows people to get the work done and get the adaptations in a really, really tiny amount of time. Like you see people who go to the gym all the time for an hour, and they're just like, lightly doing some little weight thing that just doesn't look that taxing. And then you see somebody else go in and do just a single set of, deadlifts and squats and bench press, but they go as hard as they can all the way to failure and just crush themselves. And they'll walk out of there in 15 minutes. And over the next couple of days, they'll literally have more muscle, more mitochondria, all of these adaptations so that your person in the gym for an hour, just with the pink weights or dancing around or whatever, is not going to get. And the same thing's true for cardio. If you do like a, high intensity sprinting, you're going to get the same adaptation that somebody just like walking is not going to get, even if they go all day long. So I'm all about trading intensity for time just to make it more manageable for people. Most people don't have time to be in the gym, for hours a day. They just don't have that kind of luxury. So I'm all about getting it done with the least time, the least equipment, the easiest to just work into your day. And that's kind of why I'm a fan of calisthenics, because you can just kind of do them anywhere and do little micro workouts here and there. And as long as the intensity of each set's really, really high, you're still going to get the adaptations, even if it's fragmented or anywhere or that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. I'm just getting an update that stocks for these major gym corporations have just plummeted since you just said that. People can do push-ups and get just as good results as they can joining a gym. And it is always funny. Like we have a little community center in my neighborhood, and the front desk girls just give me the weirdest look because I'll walk in and 10 minutes later they see me walking out and I look like I'm dying, and they're probably like, what is this guy doing? Like, but you're right. You can be very effective with a really minimal amount of time if you're pushing that intensity and telling, like you said, telling your muscles that you need to get stronger. We need you to build muscle. This is an expensive process. It's not easy, but go through it because you're going to die if you don't get stronger, if we don't build bone density, connective tissue, all that stuff. So critical, but you have to get to that threshold.
Right. Yeah. It's just basically demanding an adaptation from your body. And that's how you really add muscle and add strength and add power. And that's how you add speed. And that's how you add cardiorespiratory fitness, VO2 max, which is probably one of the most important longevity factors imaginable. So your cardiorespiratory fitness is probably the single most important factor when it comes to not developing Alzheimer's dementia and not dying of all-cause mortality. So if you really look at different factors and how they correlate to lifespan and health span, cardio is huge. You know, like people who are in really good cardio, respiratory fitness, they're like 12 times less likely to get Alzheimer's dementia, and their all-cause mortality goes down by an order of magnitude, and all this amazing stuff. So you always want to do high intensity cardio so that you're in really good cardio shape. You want to be able to, you know, run up a couple flights of stairs and not be short of breath at all. It's like a superpower. You want to be as strong as you can. You want to have the highest lean mass you can. You want to have the highest VO2 max or cardiac output and cardiorespiratory performance. And you'll only get these things if you demand it of your body and if you push yourself way out of your comfort zone and hit a very high level of effort and intensity. Luckily, you can do that though, like with no time and no equipment, and it just takes a couple minutes, honestly.